All right, we're back. This is the Two Player Podcast. I'm Erik Kain.
And I'm Paul Tassi.
And today we're going to be talking about a show. If you haven't guessed what it is yet, I'm just going to let this music keep playing for a little bit longer. Yeah, you got it. Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones, and it's going to be an interesting episode, I think, because if I, I've read Paul's piece on this episode, and I've written a couple, and it's not necessarily the prettiest take. This is kind of an off episode for the show, I'd say. Would you agree?
I'd agree. I mean, I haven't even finished exploring the depths as to where I didn't really like that episode, but
yeah,
especially compared to the premiere. But
yeah, it was a strange. I mean, there was something really off, I felt like, about the entire episode. I mean, except for a couple of good moments. Like, I was thinking about it this morning, and this is something I didn't even write about, but there's that scene where Daenerys and all the sort of matriarchs of Westeros are gathered, and Tyrion and Varys and everybody. And at the end of the scene, Olenna says, can I speak with you privately or whatever? And Dany says, leave us. And everybody just sort of turns around and walks really awkwardly out of the room.
Shuffles away.
They just sort of shuffle out. No one's like, yes, my grace. No one bows. Like, they all just sort of turn around and walk out like it reminded me kind of like a high school play where, you get the blocking down, but then it's kind of like people leave the stage and it's kind of this
exit right.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, it was such a weird shot. And I thought that's sort of emblematic of the whole episode, which was sort of filled with these awkward, weird, half-baked moments.
There were so many awkward scenes in that episode.
Yeah.
And like, this is kind of a larger issue where I'm really starting to miss George R. Martin's writing, and like
yes.
that sounds weird, and like it's not just as like a book snob, and it's not even just kind of what you said about the logic and coherence of character motivation. I literally mean like the writing of the characters, like their lines, because like that whole Jon Snow speech that he gave to the other houses, like that was just such an awkward scene. He's like, well, we need to do this, and I know it might be a trap, but I'm going to do it anyway. And it's not on the same level as like kind of the show used to be, or like the scene where Littlefinger confronts Jon in the cellar. Like that was also just really off for me, where I don't know, the show's kind of being reduced to its base elements. And I thought it was kind of funny to me because there's that moment where Davos is reading the letter, and then it has the line from Tyrion about like, oh, all dwarves are bastards in their father's eyes. And I'm like, oh, it's a reminder of when this show used to have like really good lines that were really memorable. And it doesn't have that anymore for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, and I think Tyrion is a great example of where we've just really lost a great character. I mean, he's not dead, but he may as well be, because what has he done? And I don't know how many episodes now. He has barely done anything. He's barely been witty or interesting, since he left King's Landing. I mean, there was some good stuff, obviously with Varys and then with Jorah. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Like, all dwarves are bastards in their father's eyes is such a great line. And I picked up the books the other day, and I was just sort of thumbing through and reading passages. And there's so much of that in the books. I guess it's the reason they're so popular, because Martin really, he has his shortcomings, but he really can write.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that. You know what I thought was one of the most like laugh out loud moments was when they're talking about the, Melisandre's there, and they're talking about the Azor Ahai, or however you say that.
Actually, the word.
And Miss Sandy's like, oh, actually, this can be translated as boy or girl. And it's like, oh, fuck off.
I mean, even if that's true, that was just such an awkward way of putting it. Like,
it's so on the nose.
I've heard this show in the past little while described as fan fiction, where I think that's kind of an accurate description. Like, I don't want to totally bag on the show, and the show's done some really awesome things that I think have almost improved on certain aspects of the book in many ways. But now I think the longer it goes and the more we kind of head towards a finale where everything has to come together, the less I'm starting to feel that. And the more I find myself wondering, I'm like, oh, well, what would Martin actually be doing here? Like, because this doesn't seem like something that would happen in the books. And it's not really the feeling of like, oh, the books or the show's improving on the books, in this way and that way. they've really kind of they're sailing out on their own, and it's getting a little weird.
Speaking of sailing, the episode ends with a bit of sailing, and that again, like it's just such a weird scene because you want it to be exciting, you want it to be like a cool fight. There's the sand snakes and they're getting killed, which who cares because they're pretty useless on the show. And Euron is like crazy, like straight off the cast of Vikings, and it does none of it makes any fucking sense at all. Like how did he find them? How did he specifically find their ship and ram it? Just what is going on, honestly? And then why? Okay, so what I wrote in my article was, one of the things I wrote is why did they go from, why did Ilaria and Elena and all of them travel with Daenerys to Dragonstone when they could have just stayed in Sunspear, worked out their plans, and then gone from there? Does that make sense to you?
Not really. Like, I think you have to have some knowledge of the map where that doesn't make sense. Whereas maybe I think on the show they're kind of hoping
that no one knows where anything is.
Just ignore that. Because like if you don't really know where the layout is, like if you do, it doesn't make any sense at all. And I totally agree with the points you made about that in your article. I think that was one they were maybe trying to just slip past the fans. I don't know. We sound like snobs, but or just huge dorks who know the Game of Thrones map. But
I think a lot of people do at this point. I would say that even show watchers have Googled the map and looked at it. Maybe not everybody, but a lot. I would say a pretty large group of people have. And in that same vein, even if they did go to Dragonstone, well, okay. If the Unsullied are now sailing to Casterly Rock, wouldn't they just also go with Yara and them as far as, the Dornish Peninsula? Because they have to sail all the way around that peninsula now. All the way around.
Okay, so even
to Casterly Rock.
That's weird. But even on the other side, even on Euron's side, like the whole like gift to Cersei thing is so weird. Where like Cersei's trying to secure him as an ally and get him to use his fleet to mess up the other fleet. And then, but before they've even made that deal, he just does it anyway. So, like, after he's butchered, like, the original Iron Fleet, like, what? It was such a weird tactical decision that it could have just gone so terribly for him. It just, I don't know. Maybe he's just reckless and that's how it works. And he just loves Cersei that much where he's got to, risk everything on some crazy tactical maneuver.
Which, like you said, pretty much fulfills the allegiance, even though, they have. I mean, well, the whole Iron Fleet is ridiculous at this point. It's basically the strongest like naval fleet in the universe, and like with that kind of power, the Iron Islands should probably be in control of the Seven Kingdoms by now.
Yeah.
Like, how did if they have this, in a few months, if they can rally this kind of naval power with that many men, like how did they ever get beaten down by Robert and Eddard in the original
land fighting? They're very bad at, apparently. But
they've got islands. I mean, how did they ever get to the islands with all these ships, in the way? The whole thing, they've really kind of lost the thread, and that's a little worrisome. And I'm hoping, I'm okay with kind of forgiving some logical inconsistencies and making exceptions and kind of just glossing over stuff when the writing and the acting and everything else is engaging enough that it's fun to watch. Mm-hmm. So there's a ton of problems since the show left the books behind, I think. And there's a ton of problems even with some of the changes they've made, and I would say like with Sansa's storyline in particular. But I can forgive a lot of things until we get episodes like this one that are just also not very entertaining. They're just not very good.
Yeah.
And it's weird because they only have like,
that's the problem is like now when we drop a bad episode, it's like, oh no, that was one of the 10% of the remaining episodes. Like, now there's only 11 left or whatever it is now. But yeah, it's like increasingly stressful now when there's like not great episodes. But all right, well, was there anything this week that you did like so we can not be negative for the whole 20 minutes here?
Okay, well, I'm going to give a mixed bag on this next one because I liked. So this Sam, I've been enjoying Sam. Okay,
yes,
I love Sam, and he's been funny, and I like his stuff at the Citadel. I think it's kind of ridiculous that he is in 2 weeks now discovered the Dragon Glass Mountain and the cure for grayscale, you know, like
superpowers of reading.
Yeah, he is. You remember Stannis, of course, sent far and wide across the land to find a cure for the daughter he would eventually burn to death at the stake.
All they had to do was carve it off her face, apparently.
All they had to do, yeah. And it would have been so easy. And if Sam had been there, he would have figured it out right away. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of irritating, but I still kind of like the scene. Although I don't know why I kept saying, why isn't he giving him milk of the poppy? Don't they give milk of the poppy to everybody?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
I mean,
no, here's a stick.
But then it segs to the pot pie from the the carving of flesh to the pie, and it was just they
love those transitions this season. They're like all about these transitions.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah,
I like it.
It is funny. But no, I agree. I thought that was a good scene. I don't know why. I just really like seeing Sam and Jorah together, like just because they were such disparate kind of characters. It just generally, I have to admit, I really enjoy seeing all these characters kind of come together, and I'm super hyped for Jon Snow to finally meet Daenerys, because like I have no idea like if they're going to do the ultimate kind of fan fiction wish where they're like are fall in love, or if they become like bitter enemies. I don't know. I think that's really going to be interesting, and I'm very curious to see how they handle that.
Do you think that that's going to happen soon? I mean, I know he says he's going to go there, and he has a teleportation device in Winterfell.
Judging by the fact that everyone else is just teleporting around the map now, I don't know if they're going to waste more. I wouldn't say more than 1 or 2 episodes of travel time. I mean, maybe it won't be next week, but they're getting people places pretty quickly now. There's no more like, oh, here's Arya and the Hound trekking across the country for 6 months and 2 years. Yeah. I think they're kind of done with that at this point. So,
well, actually, speaking of Arya, that's maybe the only character we see traveling anymore.
Yeah.
We see her traveling, and that's, I like that. I really like that, actually.
Yeah, if we're talking about scenes we like, I did not particularly like the wolf scene, but
no, that was weird, right? I mean, I liked that the wolf that we got to see Nymeria. I liked the idea behind it, but the execution and the sort of where it went was very strange.
The problem is in the books, the wolves are always like referenced a lot. Like, oh, there's this growing pack of wolves, like led by this like beastly she-wolf, like roaming around the countryside, like killing Lannisters or something. And it's alluded to quite frequently. But in the show, like I was watching with my wife, and she's like, when did she lose her wolf? I'm like, season 1? I was struggling to try and kind of remember what even had, like, did she set her free when Lady was killed? I honestly like couldn't remember, and we haven't seen the wolf since so long. I even forgot. Well, is Ghost still alive, or did Ghost die? We just don't see him. Okay,
I think Ghost is alive, but they only have CGI budget for like 1 wolf per season.
I was like, I didn't think Ghost died, but I don't know where he is, if he's with Jon or if he's at the wall or something. But
yeah, I don't know. They've been really weird about the wolves in general, and I feel like that is one of those things in Game of Thrones, the TV show, one of those tells that they don't quite. They may love the books and they may be big fans and they may be doing their best to adapt it, but there are these things that feel like they don't quite get.
Well, that's what this week felt like with the wolves, where they're like, oh yeah, we have wolves. Like, let's do a wolf scene for the first time in 5 years with this wolf we forgot about.
And in the books, Arya is dreaming about the wolves also, because numerous of the Stark children have that
warg-ish sensibilities.
Wargish sensibility, yeah. And I mean, only Bran really sort of follows that path, but Jon and Arya both have that also. And Arya is dreaming about the wolves. And I think, like, in a show that was taking its time a little more, that would have been something that could have been played up for like 2 or 3 episodes. Arya waking up from a dream about wolves.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how you introduce something like that, so that it's not quite so abrupt.
Did you say at the end, like, that wasn't you or something, it's some other direwolf that looks exactly like your direwolf?
No, so I read about that, and I actually added it in an update to my review.
Oh, did you?
What it is that she says, that's not you, and it's a reference to when Ned Stark is talking to Arya Stark in the first season and tells her that someday she'll be a lady in a castle or something like that, and she said, no, that's not me. And
Wow, would not have caught that.
I know it's 7 seasons later, so how are you supposed to catch that? That's a pretty obscure.
I still don't really get that in that context, but okay.
So what she's saying is, you want to come with me to Winterfell, and then the wolf doesn't want to, so she's saying no.
Oh, I get it. So she wants to like
you're not a castle
and whatever. Okay, yeah.
You're wild, like sense. Yeah. It makes sense.
Now I like that slightly more, but.
It's not bad. The problem is that when you are referencing a obscure snippet of dialogue 7 seasons earlier, like what are the chances?
You have to go on Reddit and read all the threads about everyone dissecting every line.
and that's, I mean, and of course some of that's going to be inevitable no matter what when you get into a long show like this. But that was a little ridiculous. I didn't love that scene either. But I liked the hot pie scene.
It was kind of nice. Okay, I couldn't remember if it was this week or last week. Yeah, the hot pie scene was good, and I liked the decision she had to make to choose to go to Winterfell instead of King's Landing. That was a really good moment.
Yeah, it was a great moment, and it's exciting for her to head that direction. Though whether she makes it or not, we'll see. I mean, Bran got to Castle Black not that long ago, and he still can't make it down to Winterfell. So
well, she's got to run into the Hound, right? I mean, I assume that she would. I don't know. I don't even know what Hound and Beric are trying to do at this point. Like, I don't know where they're going, or
I think they're going to the north to fight.
Oh, they are. Oh, yeah, because they saw the vision in the flame, so they're going to try and help with that. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I think so. So I wonder how much of this also is plaguing George R. R. Martin, but it feels like to some degree, just the nature of the story has changed so much from a Game of Thrones with political intrigue and, actual sort of human dynamics and conflicts that are not easily resolved, betrayal and tragedy and all that, to a story that's about where everything is larger than life. And I don't just mean the White Walkers, but also, we've gone from, Tywin Lannister to Ramsay Bolton. We've gone from the Red Wedding to inexplicable sort of plot points like Littlefinger taking Sansa to the north. And then we sort of have gotten to this place where everything's coming to a head. And is it just not as interesting? Is it just harder for the show and maybe for Martin writing the books to create such an interesting dynamic that we got in the earlier seasons? Like, is it all going to be so predictable? I don't know. I'm a little nervous.
I don't know either. Like, lately, everything's kind of felt a little happy ending-ish, where everyone's getting their revenge, on the exact people that wronged them in the exact coolest possible way they could get revenge, like with Ramsay and with, the Freys. So I do wonder kind of how it's all going to shake out in the very end, where, one major character has to die, one will survive. It's hard to imagine, like, it's not like the White Walkers are just going to roll in and crush everyone and they're dead. Like, I think there's going to have to be some balance between, the kind of crushing horror that happens, across the Song of Ice and Fire, but then not this overly rosy ending where everyone gets their just desserts and everyone else is, living happily ever after. So I am curious to see how both the show and the books will balance that.
Yeah. I mean, it has to be a little bittersweet, but at the same time, I have this, I don't know, I've just been thinking about, like, what is the point of grim, like everything being so grim? Like, I feel like so a good story arc, in my opinion, is one in which everything gets worse before it gets better. Like, to me, that's some of the best writing advice you can get.
It's a lot of stories.
A lot of stories, right? Everything gets worse before it gets better. Mm-hmm. And boy, did everything get worse in Game of Thrones. But I feel like there was a tipping point right around the Red Wedding, right? Where everything just got so much worse that inevitably, pretty soon it had to start getting better. But then where the story went was, let's make it even fucking more horrible. Let's introduce Ramsay Snow, who is so bad that he makes everyone else look like, Joffrey's like a nice guy comparatively, right? So let's just make it even worse and put all our characters through even more shit. And at a certain point, and I was saying this around, season 5, Jon Snow's stabbed to death and Sansa's getting raped by Ramsay and all that. And I'm thinking, okay, this has gotten into a point where it's just so bleak,
too much,
and so awful. Like, at what point do things start getting better? But then you run into the problem, like, okay, now we still have 2 seasons where we need to resolve everything. I mean, do things keep getting worse still before they get better, or do we deserve now as viewers, an audience, to get better now because it's been so bad?
The way
for so
I
long?
see it is we've kind of gone through a little stretch of time, like what I just said, where things did get better for a while, and like the really evil people died, and like Ramsay was killed and the Freys were killed, and the Starks are being reunited, and Daenerys is all her huge army, and she's ready to go and conquer everything. So I think it did go through this little get better phase, but I think we're about to head into another maybe mini bleak phase where Daenerys' plan starts to fall apart, and then Littlefinger's probably going to go after Jon in the north, and I imagine we are not going to get through a Game of Thrones series finale without the wall coming down.
Right.
Whether, I don't know if that'll like be the end of all things, but that'll certainly happen. So I think we're about to go through another kind of dip here, but then at the very end, again, I don't know if it'll all surge back up again and everything will be great, or if it'll kind of be a mix, or what'll happen then.
It's just kind of an odd place to be in regards to a story, I feel like,
Yeah.
Because there's, I mean, how many sort of climactic moments can you have? How many sort of, terrible defeats and major victories can you have before it all starts to sort of plateau?
Well, I think that's why they're ending it, and I think they may have kind of foreseen that, and they're like, okay, well, we don't want to do like 5 more seasons without George R.R. Martin, as
Right.
reference. So I think we kind of know, we have a vague idea of where we want to go, and we're just going to fill in the blanks, and then we're going to give it another 13 episodes. So now that's actually starting to make a lot of sense as to why it's kind of wrapping up, so quickly. But it's it's going to have its challenges for sure.
Yeah, and I think that in the rush to finish it, I mean, I hope that they don't leave out too much of the sort of good character stuff that makes this show so great.
Yeah, I think they still there's the pilot, I think, had a lot of good character stuff. Not the pilot, the first episode of this season. This episode will probably only have 1 or 2 scenes, but I don't think they're fully leaving that stuff behind yet, outside of a few exceptions. So I have faith that they'll keep kind of plugging away at that aspect of it.
One last little part of the episode that I wanted to ask you about. What was your take on kind of the Daenerys stuff, like Daenerys and Varys, and Daenerys and Olenna, and Daenerys summoning Jon Snow to bend the knee?
Yeah, I think they're kind of torn as to what to do with her now, whether to make her this kind of benevolent ruler, this fearsome thing, and they're literally kind of playing that out with like, oh, Olenna's telling her to be mean, and like Tyrion's telling her to be nice, and like, who do you listen to? And I liked the Varys scene. I thought that was good, and kind of a good exploration of his character and why he does what he does, and why he looks like he's always betraying so and so, but really it's kind of for the good of the realm and the people. And like, given his upbringing, that's where he's come from. The other stuff, I don't know. I wish Tyrion had more to do, obviously, like we covered earlier, and just saying like, okay, we're going to do this military thing, and you probably shouldn't burn King's Landing down. Like, he was like one of the leads of the show, and now he's pretty much like the Sir Davos of this little party here, which
that's a good way to put it.
Lesser. I don't know. I think they need to get out of Dragonstone pretty quickly, or this is going to turn a little sour. I don't think they can just hang out there in the war room for too much longer.
Yeah, but what happens when the fucking Sons of the Harpy show up?
Oh, please. Please tell me we're done with the Sons of the Harpy. Please.
They're going to show up and they're going to murder her whole army.
One rips off his mask, and it's what's that dude's name? It's Barristan Selmy. He's back, and
he's leading
Sons of the Harpy now.
He's leading the Sons of the Harpy.
The perfect finale.
Oh my god, it's the twist we've all been waiting for.
Yep, exactly.
I sort of feel like Dany's become like, she's always so regal now. She's like the queen, and she's lost like some humanity in a way, and it just bugs me. Like, she's so cocky. Like,
She is a little cocky. Yeah,
she knows nothing about. She knows nothing about Jon Snow. She knows nothing about the North. She knows nothing.
Good reference.
Yeah, I had to throw that in there. But so yet she's like just confident that what she should do, rather than make an alliance with the king in the North, is to get him there to bend the knee. Like, I get like a little she wants. Yeah.
Although I did like the part. I did like the part about how she talked about like, oh, is everyone toasting secretly to my name? And
yeah.
I thought that was kind of funny, where she like sees through that bullshit.
Yeah, she sees through it, but then she kind of still acts like.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, why? Okay, here's something that I want the show to answer this. I want the books to answer this. Why does she want to be the queen of Westeros? Why?
Good question.
Nobody ever answers that question. I mean, all she wanted when she was married off to Khal Drogo was to go back home to the apartment she was living in and like to relive her happy childhood memories and not have to be a sex slave and not have to be, a part of her brother's crazy ambitions. And then she just turns around completely and is like, yes, I need to be the queen of everything. And it's never really explored all that well. Why? Jon Snow's like, I don't even want to be king, and I get that. We've had enough characters. Yeah, that we've had enough characters who really want to be the king or they want to be the queen and it's kind of refreshing to have Jon Snow be like, look, I'm just doing this because I need to. Somebody has to do it. Like, but Daenerys is like another.
Daenerys, it's kind of a combination of revenge and rights. Like, I think she kind of takes it on herself to redeem her entire family's name at this point, and certainly against the Lannisters. I mean, it might be about sitting on the throne, but it's also about kicking the Lannisters off the throne when they were the ones that kind of ousted her. So that might play into it. I would like to be optimistic and say that it's because she genuinely wants to help people and like make Westeros better as like a nice ruler. But if she cared that much about helping people, she could have stayed in Marine and just figured that whole thing out. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's an easy answer for that.
I wish, almost at this point in the story, it would be interesting if she'd found out about the White Walkers and and was actually just planning to head north, or something like that. Right now, it just feels like
just like the wall's going to fall. We are getting a dragons versus White Walkers battle. It might be like the last episode, but that is happening at some point. That's inevitable.
Yeah.
and then the show is clunkily spelling that out. Hey, what's good
right?
Ice monsters? Dragonfire.
Wait, really? You know what else is good against
episode.
Dragons, though?
Yeah, I know. It was like, I think it was Davos or something, but
yeah.
It's like, 3 dragons could really come in handy against this ice army. At that point, it's like you don't even need Sam's horde of dragon glass weapons. It's like, what's the point? Just get the dragons.
What if but here's the thing. What if the White Walkers and the Night King have ballistas? What if they have those?
So are ballistas the new dragon horn? Is that like the dragon solution? I think that's what it
is shoot a dragon that's flying around.
That was another great
very
part.
Large weapon.
Did you know if you harpoon dragons, they can like get hurt? Like, why was that a breakthrough? It was like the most logical thing on earth. It's like, and also dragons died somehow. I mean,
Qyburn acts like it's some new invention or something too. I mean, look, if you
maybe
have
that specific type of ballista is, but I got really mad when she was going to shoot the skull. I'm like, don't blow up the skull. It's such a treasured heirloom.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're getting off track. But
okay, all right, yeah. I think we've.
That's it. Cue the exit music.
Oh my God, it's the end music.
Yeah.
Where'd that come from?
You should play the end music as like Reigns of Castamere or something.
Oh, that would have been good. Next time. We'll do that. We'll do the Reigns of Castamere when there's a big character death that we have to talk about.
Good.
Who do you think is going to die next?
Probably one of the kidnapped people, like Ilaria or Yara, which is kind of lame, but
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah. You think Grey Worm's going to die?
maybe just if only to spare us more of those scenes.
Well, we won't touch that one.
Yep. Okay. And on that note.
All right.
All right.
Well, thanks for listening, everybody. All right. See you, man.